I was talking to my friend the other day, and she's a really good cook. And we were talking about cooking and the food that we make. And I quite like cooking as well. And I noticed that with my food, there's this kind of quality in it. And it's an essence of me, but it's a kind of version of my love that goes into it. And I noticed with my friend's food, her food always has this lovely, delicious taste. And we were talking about sometimes when we cook, if we're in a rush or we're not focused on what we're doing, our food doesn't have that quality. And then it tastes maybe a bit bland or a bit odd. And we were wondering about what's the difference? Like, just because we're focused on the food, what difference does that make? Like, you wouldn't think logically that that makes a difference because you think you chop your food up, you cook it to for 5 minutes or whatever the recipe says, and it will be as you want it to be. But without that ingredient of that je ne sais quoi, that something, that love from the chef, from the person making it, doesn't have the same quality, the same feel, the same texture. I noticed that my cooking, and the same with my friends, is it just doesn't quite work. It just tastes like you've eaten food. It's all right, it's not shit, but it's not got that same quality. And that led us to think about life in general. So if that applies to cooking, does it apply to life? If you're a person that is able to bring love, like a household that is filled with love, does that also bring a coherence? And I think it does. I think that when we can be a loving being, loving ourselves, for example, let's say all we did in life was to love ourselves. And I don't mean like, I'm so great, I'm so special, I love me so much. I don't mean like an egoic loving. I mean a true loving, as if we treated ourselves like we were the visitor or we were the godliness. If we could treat ourselves like that and just feel joy and compassion with our own being, will that translate into the world? And I think it does. So if you have somebody who's running a household, let's say, and they're a loving person, that household's going to feel warm and cohesive and like a place you want to be, as compared to if somebody's running a household and they're busy and they don't have time. It's not to make them a bad person for that. It's more to notice what love brings. So, one of the things that I love doing with love is kind of loving indiscriminately. Walking down the street and just loving everybody you pass. You don't even need to know them. You can just love in general. And it feels like loving everyone just brings this quality of this extra quality, like that essence of that I'm talking about in the cooking. It brings that into our life. So, where are you with love? How does love sit in your life? For most people, we love the people that we love. You know, we love the people we're allowed to love. Maybe our parents, our siblings, our partners, our children, maybe even our friends. But it's like we reserve our love for those that we're allowed to love, we're allowed to be close to. And have you ever had an encounter with someone, maybe someone you met on the train or a bus or a plane, and you just had a certain amount of time with them? Maybe you didn't exchange names, maybe you didn't exchange details or numbers or anything, but you could feel love in that moment for that person and they for you. Doesn't that just make an enjoyable event, an enjoyable interaction? So I want to talk about you allowing yourself to love beyond what society tells us we can love. I'm not saying you have to go up to strangers in the street and tell them that you love them, but can you feel love for someone you don't even know? Can you? Give it a go.